Okay, let's be real for a sec. Waiting for a guy to finally say I love you can be like the most agonizing thing ever.
It's
It's like this crazy mix of hope and doubt, and you're just kind of stuck in limbo.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
So today we're going to tackle this head on.
Okay.
We're diving deep into this article called Why is He Slow to Declare His Love? Trusting God's Timing for a Meaningful Relationship.
Right.
We're going to figure out if this whole waiting thing is like part of some bigger plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting, how even way back in biblical times, people were trying to figure out this whole love and relationships thing.
Oh, for sure.
Like, take Genesis 2.18,
Okay.
and it says, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him."
So it's not just about finding like any guy.
Exactly. That verse kind of hints that God has a specific person in mind for each of us,
Yeah.
someone who will really complement you and, like, help you grow.
Makes sense. Okay, so then what about this whole helper thing? Because some people might hear that and think, wait a minute, is this telling me to just like be passive and let him take the lead?
Oh, I totally get that. But when you dig into the original Hebrew, the word for helper
Mm.
actually suggests, like, strength and resourcefulness.
Really?
Yeah, it's more about being a strong and supportive partner who brings her own awesome qualities to the relationship, not shrinking back.
Okay, so like an equal partner, right? Bringing your A game and all that.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the guy in all of this.
Oh, right.
I mean,
Okay.
guys are often wired a little differently, especially when it comes to expressing their feelings.
That's for sure.
Even Proverbs 30.119 touches on this. It says, "The way of a man with a maiden is too wonderful for me." Like, even the Bible acknowledges that guys can be kind of mysterious sometimes.
Uh-huh, yeah. I think a lot of women out there can relate to that. So if we're trying to understand why he's taking his sweet time to say those three little words,
Mhm.
what are some things we might be missing? Like from his perspective.
Well, it's important to remember he might be dealing with his own stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe doubts, fears, insecurities. He could be seeking clarity from God, just like you are.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a bad sign if he's not, like, shouting his feelings from the rooftops.
Right. It might just mean he processes things at a different pace. Doesn't mean his feelings aren't real or strong.
That's a good point. It's so easy to get caught up in our own feelings and timelines, but we gotta remember he's on his own journey, too.
Totally. And rushing into something based only on emotions, no matter how intense, might not be the best move. God's plan is about the long game, not just fleeting feelings.
Right,
Like
right.
Ephesians 5.31 talks about marriage as this super profound union. It says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh."
Wow.
It's about a deep connection,
Mhm.
ordained by God, not just like a whirlwind romance.
Okay, I get that. But here's a question that might be on some of our listeners' minds. What if we're worried about, like, putting our lives on hold while we wait for him to figure things out?
Right.
How do we balance that with, actively pursuing our own dreams and goals?
That's a great question. And it actually brings us to the story of Ruth.
Yeah, Ruth's story is, like, seriously inspiring. It shows how sometimes the best love stories happen when you least expect them. Can you give us, like, a quick rundown for those who might not know her story?
Of course. So Ruth was this young widow, and she was in a really tough spot, but she didn't, like, give up or anything. She
Mm.
chose to, lean on her faith and serve God, and she worked super hard in the fields, you know, gleaning leftover grain.
Wow.
And she took care of her mother-in-law, Naomi, like, with total devotion.
It's amazing that she wasn't even focused on, like, finding a husband at that point, right?
Exactly. She was just living her life, doing what she felt called to do. She wasn't sitting around waiting for some Prince Charming to show up. She was pursuing her purpose and trusting that God would handle the rest.
Okay.
And then, bam, love just kind of entered the picture.
Wow.
As she was working in the fields, this kind, wealthy landowner named Boaz noticed her, like her work ethic and her character.
It's like that saying, what water grows.
Total though.
She was watering her faith, her character, her purpose, and then boom, love just blossomed from that.
I love that. That's such a great way to put it. Ruth's story is a good reminder that we don't have to, like, force things or try to manipulate situations.
Right.
We can trust that God is working behind the scenes, making everything happen according to his plan.
So connecting this back to our listeners who are, like, waiting for their guy to say, I love you, what's the big takeaway here?
I think the main point is that this waiting period isn't wasted time. It's a time for, like, self-growth, self-discovery, and, deepening your relationship with God. Instead of focusing on what he's not doing or saying, maybe shift your focus to what you can control.
Yeah.
Your
Right.
personal growth, your relationship with God, your passions, all that good stuff.
So it's about like becoming the best version of yourself, not just for him, but for you.
Right, exactly. When we invest in ourselves, we become, well, more attractive, not just physically, but also in terms of our character, our confidence, and our well-being.
That's so encouraging, but let's get real for a sec. Like, what are some actual things someone can do to, embrace this waiting time and make it a time of growth? What are some like actionable steps?
First things first, prioritize your relationship with God. Spend time in prayer, study his word, and really, really seek his guidance. That's where you'll find strength, peace, and direction.
I mean, prayer is powerful, but sometimes people might struggle with the idea that like it's enough. Like, okay, I'm praying, but shouldn't I also be like putting myself out there, going on dates, actively looking? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not about choosing one or the other, really. It's more about finding a balance, I think.
Okay.
Prayer isn't some magic formula or anything,
Right.
but it is a way to invite God into the whole process, to surrender your desires to him and to, seek his wisdom in your dating life.
I see.
At the same time, yeah, it's good to be open to opportunities to meet new people, go on dates, do social things where you can connect with people who share your values.
Okay, so it's about being like proactive in your pursuit of love, but also trusting God's timing and guidance.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of self-reflection. This is the perfect time to really get to know yourself, your values, your dreams, your non-negotiables in a relationship, all of that.
It's like taking inventory of your heart.
Yeah,
Like, what do you really want in a partner? What are your deal breakers?
for sure.
What are your hopes and dreams for the future?
It's not about creating some superficial checklist, but about understanding what really truly matters to you.
Okay.
The more you know yourself, the better you'll be at recognizing a good match when he comes along.
Right.
And while you're working on all that, don't forget to invest in your friendships and your relationship with your family.
Because healthy relationships in all forms are like practice for the real deal, right?
Yes, they are. Practice good communication, boundaries, conflict resolution, all that in all your relationships.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about focusing on yourself, your growth, your relationship with God. But what about the guy? How can you support him without, like, overstepping or pushing him away?
That's a really good question. It requires a delicate balance of compassion, patience, and understanding.
Okay, so we're talking about supporting him while he's, still figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
But without being, like, pushy or making him feel, I don't know, suffocated?
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds kind of tricky.
It is. It really is. I mean, you can't force anyone to be ready for something,
Right.
Just like you're on your own journey, he's on his. Think about, times you felt pressured to make a decision before you were ready.
Yeah.
It probably didn't go so well, did it?
Not at all. Like, pressure just makes me want to, like, run the other way. So what do we do? Just, like, sit back and wait?
Not necessarily. You can totally be there for him, be supportive and encouraging without trying to, control the whole thing. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen.
Okay.
Really listen, without judgment. Let him know you're there for him, that you care, but don't, bombard him with advice or try to force him into a decision.
So less you should just tell her how you feel and more I'm here for you no matter what kind of thing.
Exactly. Trust is huge in any relationship, and that includes, trusting him to make his own decisions in his own time.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And while you're doing that, remember to, take care of yourself emotionally, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in his journey and forget about your own needs.
It's like they say on airplanes, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
So what are some ways to, stay grounded and emotionally healthy while we're in this, waiting phase?
Well, that's where all that personal growth stuff we talked about comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling, impatient or anxious, channel those feelings into your own growth,
Okay.
spiritual, personal, whatever. Remember, God's using this time to, refine you, to shape you into the amazing woman he knows you can be.
So instead of, obsessing over his timeline, we can focus on becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly. Dive into those passions. Spend time with your friends. Go after your goals. The more fulfilled you are in your own life, the less pressure you'll put on the relationship.
Right.
And honestly, the more attractive you'll be as a partner.
That's a good point. It's not about waiting for him to catch up. It's about, Running our own race with God leading the way.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe as you're both, working on becoming your best selves, your paths will just naturally cross, you know,
Wow.
in God's perfect timing.
I love that. This has been like so eye-opening, a breath of fresh air for anyone who's feeling like stuck in this whole waiting thing. Any last words of wisdom for our listeners before we wrap up?
Just remember, waiting on God's timing isn't a punishment, it's preparation. It's a season of growth, of surrender, of drawing closer to the one who knows you better than anyone. Embrace this time.
Mm-hmm.
Let
Yeah.
God do his thing in your heart and trust that he has an amazing love story waiting for you, one that's totally worth the wait.
So well said. And just remember, no matter where you are on your journey, you're not alone. God is right there with you every step of the way, guiding your steps, healing your heart, preparing you for a love that'll totally blow you away. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep trusting the one who holds your heart and your future.